Rob and Slim Show.
Hello, it's Sarah.
Sarah,
What's going on, Sarah?
How are you guys? Hi, my Slim.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you? I've been listening to your voice for the past, 5 minutes. I literally just finished an interview for my show.
Okay.
Oh.
So I am totally knackered. Yeah, we were discussing chastity. So that's pretty cool.
I saw that was the next episode.
What's that?
I saw that was the next episode that you were doing, was chastity.
Yes, I had Nicholas on the show. He's from YourKinkyFriends.com, and he is amazing. So the two of us just had an 1.5 hour long conversation about chastity and submission and dominance, which was very interesting. I hope you guys will like it.
Nice, nice. What was your last show, Sarah? I saw, I wanted to ask, what is the Quicksand Fetish?
Oh my goodness! It's super
Wow.
interesting.
The first thing I thought.
Actually, I had. It's cool, right? I didn't think that even existed. I didn't know about it, and that was the first interview that I did for my show, which was, a little over a year ago now, I think actually. I found someone on a forum when I was researching fetishes that had a quicksand fetish, and I was like, wait a minute, what is this? Like, I've never heard of this. And then I started getting phone calls about this fetish as well. And so this episode that I had on last week was just, it was the producer. He's a content producer. He does Quicksand Fetish videos.
Okay.
Jump Off Joe and actor Nixie. And the two of them were discussing how they make content for the
Okay, hold on.
community.
I'm going to cut you off. Can I just take a guess on what a quicksand fetish is?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right,
There's like a million variations and million different things it can be. So I'd love to hear what you think.
Okay, so this would be what I would think a quicksand fetish is. So a girl and a guy on like a hike, right? And the girl falls into quicksand, and she's like, "Oh wait, I'm gonna change it. Okay. Two girls are on a hike together.
Ooh.
All right, so two girls are on a hike together. Both of them fall into quicksand.
Ooh.
And they're at first they're stuck like at the bottom of their feet, right? And then they start sinking. And by the time it gets like most of their shins in the quicksand, they're like, oh shit, and they start screaming, help, help, help. And so this dude comes up and he's like, oh shit, you guys are stuck, like we need the help. And so they start sinking, but then they get to a point where it's like right below their knees and it stops. They're not really sinking anymore, they're just stuck like below their knees, maybe above their knees.
Okay.
They're stuck like a little bit above their knees, right? And so this guy's like, well, obviously you guys aren't gonna die here, I could probably just like leave you. And they're like, no, get us out. And he's like, hold on, and he whips his dick out and he puts his dick in the one girl's mouth, and like she doesn't have a choice, she's stuck in quicksand, so she starts sucking the guy's dick. And then like the other girl,
okay, you just completely threw me for a loop here because I did not see it going that way.
right? Well, am I right? Is that quicksand fetish?
Spot on. And then he took his dick out, and I was like, okay, no, that's just oral thing. But yeah, I guess he could if he really wanted to.
Right.
You know, but I think, yeah, you're pretty much like, I would say 75% was pretty spot on there in terms of, it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual like genital sexual thing. Do you know what I mean? It's more about the psychological like damsel in distress. Someone is stuck. So when I do these role plays over the phone, it's really fun because I become this like bitchy girl, and maybe I'm the new next door neighbor, and I'm always wearing these really fancy cashmere sweaters but tiny little skirts and no panties, and I just need a spanking, and then one day I go, and for some reason we have like woods in the back of our garden, and I go walking around, and I'm strolling, and our next door neighbor sees me, and I slip and I fall into this quicksand thing, and I start like sinking, and he comes out and he looks at me. And I say, please help me. Like, I have to please, why are you just standing there? And he goes, well, why would I help you? You've been such a bitch. Like, you've been such a,
I didn't know if part of it
but
too
that's
was like
one variation.
I didn't know if there was
that's
like part of it to be the victim, like because they make those beds. The first thing I thought of was like those suction beds where you're like completely covered with like latex and it vacuums out the air. Like I thought maybe like was like a helpless
because
thing.
that could also be like that could fall under mummification, like a mummification fetish where you get closed up as well. The whole like a lot of people have the fantasy of being buried alive. I mean that's like the furthest from what I would ever want.
That's
but a lot of people get turned on by the whole like asphyxiation, not being able to breathe, being completely out of control, and then eventually like giving yourself over to that force. Because like Nixie explained on the show last week, she said it's such a powerful feeling. You've got all of this mud around you, and it's like just like tons and tons of mud, and you feel completely helpless, but it's also like you feel very liberated at the same time. Like there's this, so it's just fascinating to me.
That is very interesting.
The whole buried alive thing, I don't know if I could ever. That's scary. That scares me.
Weird one. So going back to the quicksand fetish, the way you explained it, so I'm not really sure how the girl is getting off on this, but from the guy's perspective, I guess it's kind of like a power trip. Well, no, because he's saying like, no, why should I rescue you? You've been such a bitch. So for him, it's like your life.
Sorry for using the word bitch.
Well, no, that's fine. But so it's kind of like in his perspective, being the guy, he's getting off on the fact that your life is in my hands now, whether I save you or not.
Absolutely, that's one way of looking at it. You get the people who have a little bit more of a sadistic side, so they'll be like, nah, I like seeing you suffer. And then you get the guys who want to be the heroes, who want to save the damsel in distress and have her, now see him as the hero. Maybe he's like a little bit geeky, or he doesn't really know how to talk to this woman. This is like the woman of his dreams, or there's so many. It really is like any role play, except you bring quicksand and damsel in distress into it. And it could also be the other way around. I mean, I could want to see a guy go under. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not gender. It's not a gender thing at all. Like it's does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, what would your reasoning be for like? How would that get you off if you saw a guy sinking? Like, what's kind of go into more specifics with that?
Well, it wouldn't get me off because it's not my fetish.
Okay.
But I, a lot of quicksand fetishists have said to me, so I just do it over the phone as a role play, by the way, guys. So for me, but that's not what I necessarily get turned on by.
Yeah.
I'm more turned on by the dominance and the submission thing, which falls, within BDSM and all of that stuff. So, so let me just, how would I say? A lot of quicksand fetishists have explained this to me. Some of them like seeing the girl go under or the guy go under because that is the ultimate climax for them. So it's not necessarily a physical release, it's all activated in the mind.
Yeah.
Because sex happens in the brain. And so they see this person go under and they're like, oh, that's like the feeling that they get. That's the climax. Whereas you get other people who don't like the whole going under thing. They just want to see somebody like Jump Off Joe explained, maybe playing in mud. In like quicksand, just like splashing around in it. And they want to see the messiness of it. And that's what turns them on. So, every single person is an individual. And that's what makes fetishes so interesting, is that no one person is going to be alike.
Okay, so this makes me a psychopath, but this is like I don't know about like, so if I was gonna say like how like the quicksand thing would turn me on, like this is where I'm at, because like not the going under part, but the girl like kind of like, oh, you gotta help me out, and me just kind of like getting down to her level and looking her in the eyes and just being like, beg me to pull you out, tell me you need me to pull you out. No, that's psychotic, but like for me just like maybe even like, oh, if you don't, and she's like, nah, I'd never do that, and I just fucking push her down a little more. No, beg me to fucking pull you out.
Well, you know what I think?
It's psychopathic.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
No, well, it's psychopathic if there isn't consent in the role play before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so for instance, like people who have a quicksand fetish, like there's safety regulations in place. Like you can, if you listen to the episode with Jump Off Joe, he speaks specifically about like all of the safety and regulations that they put in place before these scenes get shot. And also, you know, but I get where you're coming from in terms of like feeling like a psychopath if it's just in your mind and it's just a fantasy. I just think it's a dominance thing.
Yeah.
I don't see it as, you know, because you're not actually like drowning someone in real life, I would hope.
No.
Have you?
No, I've never
good.
drowned. No. I'm actually very timid, and sometimes I feel like I'm weak, so I think a lot of my sexual fantasies are about like dominating women and things like that. Like, yeah. Which is probably
that's
psychotic.
Interesting. No, it's super interesting that you say that, because I have, you know, some dominant gentlemen who have called me, and they have all said to me, you know, I would say, where are you in this life? Like, where is this need for dominance coming from? Like, why do you want to inflict pain on someone? And then they would say, you know what, I just lost my job, and I'm feeling really out of control in my life, and I just want to get a little bit of control.
Right.
And then that makes sense. I'm not saying that every dominant man, I'm not saying every dominant man has a life that's falling apart. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that sometimes that can happen in someone's life where they don't feel like they have enough control in every day, or they might feel timid, or they might feel like they're unable to exert themselves or express themselves in a dominant way, and so it comes out in their fantasies, because we've got to balance that out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There needs to be a balance of energy, so it's going to go somewhere, and as good old Freud, you know, believed, it comes out in sexual expression, you know? So there you have it. I don't think you're a psychopath, though. I think it's very brave of you to admit that.
Well, thank you.
You're a hero, Slim.
But I'm going to push you down in that quicksand a little bit.
Oh, my God. Yes, I think, but you know, if there's one person that I would trust with this, Slim, if you want to do a quicksand scene in real life with me, there's one person I would trust, it's you.
I would be down.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I love flirting with Slim, by the way. I love flirting with him. You guys are very quiet. What's going on?
I'm waiting for Slim.
I think they're not used. They're fascinated by the interaction that I'm having with you, because usually this never happens.
Do you remember the first time we had phone sex, and you guys were waiting for this, like, hi baby, and I was like, okay Slim, so what turns you on? Hi. And it was just so normal, and I was, you know, when I hung up the phone after that first call that we had, I was like, oh my God, it was so boring. I didn't give him like stereotypical phone sex. I say to my husband, he was like, no, it was not like dirty, nasty phone sex. What do I do? I'm so boring. And he was like, it was fine. Relax, it's fine. So yeah, but we did have some sexy time, and I cannot believe that this is my third time back on the show.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was wondering, because I was talking to Slambo on the break, and he didn't recognize you. Have you ever talked to the Slamborghini before?
I think he was here the first time.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, this is the second time. Slambo.
Yeah. I was gone for a little while.
He left. He was on the
Yeah,
front.
I remember Slambo was gone for a little while. I think Amanda was there when I did my first interview.
Yeah, we got rid of her.
What?
Yeah.
What was that?
Amanda, we were speaking about.
She sunk into the quicksand.
I feel like she was going to poison my drink.
Oh my God, guys.
And your dick.
No, we had a fun conversation about fetishes, and we were speaking, well, obviously about fetishes. I mean, that's like my thing. But what were we talking? We were talking about just phone sex in general, and like how you go about in like reenacting these things over the phone. And I remember I was very nervous. I was very nervous the first time around. I was like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing here right now. But I'm just going to tell these guys about sex. I guess let's see where it goes.
Right, because we don't know anything about sex. You got to educate us.
Oh my God. Sex is always an interesting topic of conversation. I always feel like it's people talking, you know? You just have to break the ice. And then once that's broken, people are like, they can't get enough. They just want to talk about it.
Sarah, I want to ask you too. I saw one of your episodes was about mental illness. Like, how does that affect sex? Like,
oh my gosh, yes. I felt compelled to do an episode about mental illness. I like to raise awareness about it. I've had several people be affected by mental illness. I've lost 2 of my closest people to it.
oh,
And I wanted to just talk about how mental illness can affect relationships, because we always think sex is just a physical thing. And then, sometimes when somebody's showing a lack of libido, you go, and especially when it's coming from a man, as society, we believe men should always want to have sex. Like, why is he saying no to me? Like, is there something wrong with me? And, we take it personally. But it could be that person is struggling with depression, or that person could be on medication that has adverse side effects.
Yeah.
And a lot of these medications they take away your libido. And so I wanted to, as a sex coach and as a fetish coach, and I mean, this has nothing to do with fetish, but as a sex coach, I wanted to just raise a little bit of awareness about that and let people know that there's nothing wrong with you if you have low libido. There are options available. You can change your medication if you work together with your doctor. You can find other ways to spice things up or get you excited again. But I just wanted to, because sex forms such a fundamental part of a relationship. And I think that a lot of people get to a point where they go, I can't be with this person anymore, even if I love them, because there is no sex.
Yeah.
So I do think that sex is a very important part, and depression can really wreak havoc, and all mental illness can really wreak havoc on intimate relationships, sexual relationships. So that's why I wanted to do that. So yeah, that was it. I had the person that I had on my show is great, Dr. Nazanin Mawali. She's a clinical psychologist in LA, and she's wonderful. And so, yeah, her and I had a very, very open and honest discussion about it, because those are two things that people don't talk about enough. We do not talk enough about mental health, and we do not talk enough about sex.
yeah.
When we talk about, do you know what I mean? We're not honest about those two things. If we can just start being honest, we'd be in such a better place.
So I'm gonna be super honest with you right here. So I've had a lot of issues in the past with where I would go to have sex with a girl and I wouldn't be able to get hard, but then like I could watch porn and have no issue whatsoever. And so it was like, obviously I don't have ED, because like I could still get hard. I still wake up with a boner.
Yeah.
I could still watch porn and get hard. And one of the biggest issues, I think, was with a girl who I was friends with benefits with, and luckily she was able to kind of like deal with it for a few weeks. But a lot of times we would hang out and we would go to have sex, and we would go to have sex, and I wouldn't be able to get hard. And I think for me, there was a lot of nerves there, and I had a comfort issue, because eventually I had gotten to a point where I was able to get hard and able to have sex. But there were moments where I would be hard, and I'd go to put my dick inside of her. Nobody wants to hear this. And I go to put my dick inside of her, and and it would just get soft.
I would think too, like, you didn't want to get attached. You were like, part of your mind was like, I don't want to fucking get connected at all.
But this is it.
There's a lot of pressure.
Here's the thing, Slim. No, I want you to know that the brain, the mind is so important when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
And it can really hold us back. And no, you didn't have ED because you were still able to get it up with porn, but maybe, you had become conditioned by porn, so you became so used to that it was difficult for you to be vulnerable or be intimate with a partner, because you were used to being, intimate with your porn. But here's the thing, you get used to also the sensation.
Yeah.
The way, we're getting very into this right now, but the way you stroke and stuff, like your body gets used to a rhythm. It gets used to certain stimuli. Like after a while, your brain goes, okay, well, I've got to see big tits now, or else I'm not going to come. Also not going to stay, because you've conditioned yourself to experience that, but that can also be unlearned. Do you know what I mean? And but it can also be about the vulnerability of being with a partner. When we have sex, I don't think people put enough importance sometimes behind like what a big deal sex can be for some people. Like being completely naked, or you don't have to be completely naked, but I mean like having sex is, to a lot of people, a really big deal.
Well, it's
for me it is.
Well, like you said,
I have a confession too. I have a confession. I have what is called pre-orgasmic secondary, which means I have a lot of difficulty orgasming with a partner because it's a vulnerability thing. You don't want to be vulnerable.
Yes,
do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's what I was going to bring up, the vulnerability thing. I remember a few years ago I was studying self-esteem, and there was this author who I was reading, Nathan Fillion, I think his name was. I could be getting that wrong. I think his name was Nathan. I know that was his first name.
The guy from Firefly.
Oh, all right. Nathan Fillion's the guy from Firefly. It was this dude, Nathan, and his whole career was like dedicated to self-esteem, and he had talked about sex. And one of the things he said about sex was the fact that you are giving your body up to somebody else. Like, you are completely vulnerable to that person. So, yeah, that is, like you said, the vulnerability, that is very scary. Like,
absolutely.
Especially, like, being a guy, like, you know, you don't know, like, I'm putting my dick in your mouth, like, as silly as that seems, but, like, if I don't trust you, you just bite down, like, you know, and stuff like that, or not even that. Maybe that's going into a completely different, but it's also showing somebody what you are underneath. Like, we're so used to wearing clothes, so kind of like removing your clothes, you are exposing a whole nother side of yourself to somebody, and you don't show that side to anybody. Nobody sees that side of you. Nobody sees you naked. You know, so.
And there's also this pressure to perform, and you know, performance anxiety kicks in because you're like, oh my God, this is a new woman that I'm with. And, you know, usually a lot of men will say to me when they're in a new relationship, oh, I can't last longer than a minute. And I'm like, you're just excited. It's not the end of the world. You'll get used to it. But it's like, you want to please this woman because you want to show her that you're a good lover, you know. And the same thing, like another thing that I want men to know when they listen to this, because men can put a lot of pressure on a woman to orgasm as well.
Oh, wow.
Same thing. And it's like some women get performance anxiety as well, where they go, oh my God, if I have to hear one more time, did you come? Like, if you're going to ask me one more time, because it turns women off as well, because it feels like there's a result that needs to be attained. Do you know what I mean? And it's almost like it kind of ruins the journey of sex. Like, let's just experience this moment. Do you know what I mean? Let's see. And sometimes it will help to just slow down and to have a lot of foreplay before you get right into the action.
That's awesome.
Because that also, like, foreplay, I feel, really builds up intimacy between people. And you were mentioning blowjobs. I
like a good blowjob.
A blowjob, right. A blowjob is like one of the most intimate forms of sex. Ever.
So interestingly enough,
super intimate.
So interestingly enough, I was with a girl a few years ago who she had only had sex with one guy before, and it was somebody who she wasn't. He was just like dealing her pot or whatever, like whatever. It was just a dude who she would tell me like, well, the only time I ever got laid was with this guy, and I was high all the times, and I was never really into it. So I was kind of teaching her a lot of things and kind of getting her, like, I had to really slow things down because she was very shy about a lot of things. And I had asked her to suck my dick, and she told me, I'd rather you fuck me than be suck your dick. And that was really interesting to me. That
it's like I think kissing is more intimate than just sex. Like, than like
totally. It could be so much more intimate. I also think it's the intention behind an action. You know what I mean? Like, the intention behind a kiss can be more intimate than just, okay, here I am, penetrate me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really do think it's just, it really is an individual thing, and it really is about chemistry between people. But sex is just fascinating to me, you know, and before I started studying this and before I started, you know, working as a phone sex operator, I really knew very little about sex. You know, to me, sex was like missionary position, Yeah, maybe I'll like do a blowjob, but I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was getting all my sex tips from Cosmopolitan mostly. And I was like, what? I have to do a bottle cap twist? What the fuck is that? Like,
what is a bottle
all these
cap
different
twist?
names, like, oh, twist it like a bottle, and then put it in your mouth, and then give it 3 licks. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so. I was like, how am I going to remember this? This was awful. And then I realized, that when I started doing this job, that there's just such a big world out there, and sex isn't only about penetration. Sex is so much more than that.
Yeah.
Sex can be looking at somebody wearing a full body leather outfit and touching yourself. That can also be very sexual. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's sex to some people. We all have different definitions.
I'm going to derail this because I'm going to go back to what we were talking about earlier, but we were talking about, again, getting hard when having sex and how there's a lot of pressure on the men. And I did find that, like, if I had this incident once where I didn't get hard while trying to have sex with a girl, it's very terrifying. So then when I go to get with another girl, that memory pops back into your head, and you start getting in your head about it, like, oh, what if I don't get hard? What if I don't get hard? She's going to think I'm a loser. And then you don't get hard because you're so in your mind about it. It's crazy.
It becomes a pattern, and then every single time you're with a person, and then eventually you start cutting yourself off from being with people, and you...
That's why I haven't been laid in 3 years.
Masturbating by yourself. Right. Because you're like, why? It's not going to work. And that's why it's so, sex coaching is a relatively new phenomenon, but it's actually taken the world by storm. And I am training to be a sex coach. And I'm adding that to my list of credentials. And I think that it's great because with sex coaching, a coach can actually help you work through those mental blocks and say, all right, let's break this down. Let's let this go. Let's
Sarah,
move forward.
I love you to death, but I have to cut this off, and I don't want to, but it's like 9:25, and we got another interview.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, this was very fun. Thank you for having me. I always love hearing from you.
Thanks for coming on. Can you tell everyone where to find you?
Yes. So you can find my website, mustlovefetish.com. And then you can find, that's my podcast's name, and then you can find me on Twitter at Sarah Sweetly, that's SarahSweetly. Whoa, that was a mouthful. Fun. All right.
All right,
well,
Sarah.
Anyway, guys, it was lovely. Have a great evening.
You
Take care, Sarah.
We'll do it again soon.
All right, bye.
Bye, Sarah.